Welcome to the show. This is the Smash Pod, brought to you by SmashUp Fantasy Sports, the only next-gen fantasy sports game where you can choose your players, select your Smash cards, and dominate your opponents like I dominate my good buddy Hawk here. What's up, Hawk? How's it going?
Hey, what's up, Ming? Yesterday was Father's Day. How's your wife and my kids?
Yeah. The ugly one says hello.
How can you tell?
Yeah, they just look like you, and I know that's the ugly ones.
Well, hey, happy Father's Day. Did you do anything fun yesterday?
Yeah, just spent some time with my wife and my parents, so it was a good time. How about yourself?
I was good. Took the dog down to the river and then took the in-laws out to brunch. So it was a beautiful day.
Nice. Yeah. Just want to say happy Father's Day to all the dads and father figures out there. Hopefully you enjoyed the day. To all the dads out there, I know they're excited about fantasy football and football season coming upon us soon. So we got a good show. We're excited to talk through kickoff of the fantasy sports draft season, which is right around the corner. We're going to be talking about some boom or bust players, some players that we think have the opportunity to either really carry your team, or if you choose not wisely, your team. Pretty much like everyone I drafted last year on some of my teams, famously, as Chris likes to remind me. We'll talk about some guys we think are going to be some booms, some busts, and maybe some really deep sleepers that you can take in the final rounds of your draft, can end up being valued contributors, hopefully immediately in the season. We're going to be talking about CMC, one of our favorite running backs here from the Niners, was selected to be the cover boy. Do we think the curse is real? Should Niners fans be worried? We'll dive into that. We also have our role players segment, which we love. We'll have our MVPs, or maybe singular MVP, debating on who will actually be named MVP. We're actually filming this just post-finals, so it'll be interesting for us to peer into that conversation between those two studs there in Boston. And then, of course, we'll wrap things up with the chef's table with a couple of quick topics to hammer out. So I'm excited to talk through this. How about yourself, Chris?
Yeah, it's going to be fun. I mean, with the finals over, we are fully moving into fantasy football season. So it is the best time of year.
Yeah, definitely. We're excited. Just some quick news. I don't know if you saw, but we talked about Tom Brady on this show a couple of times, but he's actually getting a statue. I think it was obviously a foregone conclusion. We knew he was going to get one, but he's finally getting one at Gillette Stadium. So that's going to be great for the city, obviously, and then Tom is going to be out there where he belongs.
Yeah, it's interesting. Word is that the statue is going to be just like the real Tom Brady, but faster.
Because moving at a glacial pace is already
If you saw Tom do like a naked bootleg those last couple of years, it was not very fast.
Yeah. So, thought and question: if Robert Kraft ever gets a statue in front of Gillette or in Boston, what do you think that pose is going to be like for Kraft?
I'm pretty sure it would be a sundial.
12 noon, all the time.
All the time.
All right, moving on. All right, so our first segment is going to be our fantasy segment. We're going to call this Boom or Bust Goes the Dynamite. Like we mentioned just a few seconds ago, here to break down a couple players that Hawk and I like, could potentially be a league winner, but also has a potential to bust out, right? So it could really be an anchor on your team if you are picking wrong. So, Chris, I'll let you go with your first pick. Who do you think the players can select that could carry their teams, but in the wrong situation or circumstance could maybe tank them as well?
I'm going to start with one because I think it's a player who's been talked about so much that he's risen up the draft boards, and that's Drake London. So right now, ADP of 26. So look, obviously, maybe more boom to a lot of people than some of the other boom or bust players, but some of those later guys are being drafted at 60. They're being drafted at 80. At 26, you need someone who has to really be a stud to boom for you, and a bust. The threshold is lower.
There's a lot of hype around Drake right now.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, but 26, that isn't a lot of leagues going to be the second round. That is a second round pick for you.
Yeah.
So you're really counting him to be a star, not just a good receiver. So obviously, look, we've talked to death about Arthur Smith gone, Kirk Cousins here.
Good riddance that Arthur Smith is gone.
And good riddance to Ritter, right? Who was the quarterback last year. And I think people may not fully realize exactly how bad the situation was. I mean, London had 69 catches, 110 targets, and only 2 touchdowns. For a guy of his size with his hands, that is seemingly impossible.
That's kind of absurd. Like he should be scoring like 8 to 9 touchdowns a year.
You know what? It's because the Falcons all year only threw 17 touchdowns and had the third worst catchable target rate of any team in the league. So,
quick trivia for you.
Please.
You know who led the Falcons in receiving touchdowns last year?
Would it have been Bijan or?
I don't know. I'm like that. Who did lead them in receiving touchdowns? Maybe Bijan?
I think it was like 17 players with 1. I just don't think they went to anybody.
Because if Drake had 2, I mean, where'd the other 15 go? That even seems like a higher number than I even thought they had.
I think Ritter was just throwing them to himself. I think it was just looking at pitch and catch, a little 1 yard. Like you used to do in your bedroom as a kid.
Yeah.
Or I did. I was weird growing up. So no. So anyway, I think that this is obviously was worse last year than even people realized. I'm really high on London. I think he put up good stats despite that. And so he's a guy, despite the lofty draft ADP, he's someone I'm taking as a boom, and I think could win a lot of leagues this year.
Okay. Yeah. I do like that because I think it's an obvious pick, and I think that's a soft take by you, actually. Because it's like, yeah, this guy is going to play super well next year. He's got talent. He's got Kirk Cousins coming in. Arthur Smith is gone. I don't think it's going on a limb that much. That's why I do like the pick. I would consider that boom or bust, but it's okay. You can keep your soft takes.
Look, I met with an Army recruiter one time, and he said that I'd have a place in the military as Captain Obvious. So I think I'm living up to my title.
But all right, so I got one. I got one that's boom or bust, and I think he's just a boom or bust guy on the field, actually. So it translates pretty well. So I'm gonna go with George Pickens. So Pickens, he's going 60 overall, wide receiver 28. So he's going later. He's like, depending on the size of your league, round 5, maybe 6. Pickens last year, overall, I would say a pretty good year, right? 63 catches, 1,140 yards, 5 touchdowns, with a poo-poo platter of weak quarterback play, offense that just didn't do much.
And the good news is this year he has Russell Wilson and Arthur Smith. So that's just like hitting the very slow, broken accelerator on your car.
You joke, but that's actually better than what he had last year. I'll address that in a second. So first, you got Deontay Johnson and Robinson no longer there. So that's already vacating 130 targets. So you had Pickens, who had 106 targets last year. Baseline, he's going to have at least that much, if not more. He's now going to be the wide receiver 1, so he's the alpha there. He's a third-year receiver. For a lot of receivers, that's the year that they actually have their breakthrough, take their game to the next level. And if you think about his opportunity, I expect him to get more targets, but his baseline of 106 is there. We talk about Arthur Smith and that effect. Drake London, whom you just spoke of, had 110 targets in that offense. So Pickens actually has a little bit of room to go up with Arthur Smith in there as an offensive coordinator, if not even better because of, again, those other receivers no longer being in Pittsburgh. But, I fully expect him to have at least the numbers he had this past year, if not more. Russell Wilson, not the Russell Wilson of old, still has a decent deep ball. He was in Denver, and I think he was a scapegoat a little bit of the, I would say, up and down play of Denver. Obviously, they started off atrociously, but they actually ended up playing decently towards the end of the season. Right.
Well, look, give him some credit too. I mean, in a Sean Payton offense, he managed to carry not 1 but 2 number 4 receivers. So, I mean, if he can have 2 number 4 receivers, imagine what he could do in
and we're not looking for 2 wide receiver 4s. Maybe we can combine them into a wide receiver 2. So I don't know.
Wide receiver 8.
Yeah, I don't know. Your math has always been questionable, so we'll see. I don't know. Look, I'm going out on a limb here. The topic was boom or bust. Obviously, there's risk involved, right? Or else this guy would be going in rounds 2 or 3. But I think he's going to outperform his draft status. I think if you think of those individuals in that same range, he has the opportunity upside, and that risk is baked into his ADP right now.
Yep.
He could be someone that performs at that round 2, round 3 level. He could be a guy that you're going to be plugging in to start week after week. And I think we've already seen it last year. He'll have those weeks where he just pops and he's going to have 145 yards and a touchdown or 2. Those are the type of guys that win you weeks, and those are the guys I want in my lineup, especially if I'm grabbing them in like round 6 or 7 or something like that.
Quick question before we move on from him. Do you like him better with Russell Wilson or Justin Fields, given Fields' arm?
Yeah, I mean, good question. I mean, Pickens is a deep ball guy, right? And Fields has a good deep ball himself. And Fields supported DJ Moore to a great season last year.
Absolutely.
So I think it's just, they're a little different, right? I think Wilson is a little bit more of an accurate passer. With Pickens getting an uptick in targets, that could benefit him, especially from a PPR standpoint. But we'll see. I think it's just it's going to depend on who wins that matchup out of training camp. Sounds like it's going to be Russell Wilson, but Fields will be he'll have the opportunity to compete for the role. I think as long as there's some consistency, though, I think if you see like this carousel QB play, that's going to impact the offense of Pickens. So whoever they go with, they just stick with them for if they stick with them for most of the season. I think that'll contribute to a big year for Pickens. So that's my
And
guy.
Drake London's 2 touchdowns are up for grabs to any of those Steelers receivers.
Yeah, as long as Desmond Ritter's not there, I think they will see more than 2 touchdowns.
Fair
But
point.
let's move on. Let's talk about the other side of the coin, right? So guys that are being drafted similarly with that boom potential, but you actually feel like the odds are these guys are going to be fuckers. So who do you have on your list of potential busts there?
So we've spent a lot of time on past podcasts talking about your past trauma from your season last year. I want to talk about a player that traumatized me, who I'm not touching again, and that is Calvin Ridley. And
No, he traumatized me too, for the record.
he traumatized a lot of fantasy owners. And look, I mean, he's still got some life left in him on the football field. However, he went from what was actually a really good situation in Jacksonville last year. So he's entering his age 29 season. Last year, he had a 23% target share, over 36% of the air yards in that offense. Had what was a really big year, and actually had the most red zone targets. I believe it was 24 of any player in the NFL.
That's a crazy number of red zone targets.
But he only turned 8 of those into touchdowns, which again seems good. Like you look at his 8 touchdowns, think that's good. But it's 8 on 24 targets from a pretty darn good quarterback in Trevor Lawrence.
Super inefficient. He had the dropsies. We talked about it.
Again, feels like if it's the 1800s, it's like the name of a disease. They like your aunt died. I'm like, she got a case of the dropsies and passed away.
Might as well be a disease. Yeah.
So now he's going to Will Levis. Now he's going to a much worse Titans offense. And on the one hand, he's the number 1 receiver, but he was last year. On the other hand, I just feel like the situation is a lot worse. I don't know that the drops are going to go away. Just a guy that I feel like for the draft capital you're going to have to give up to get him, I think is more of a bust than a boom.
I think people still think of Calvin Ridley as that guy in Atlanta his last year before he had some issues and bounced. He was just super inefficient. I think he had a decent year last year. It wasn't quite where people expected him to be. And a lot of that was propped up on volume, though, right? Like he needed 24 red zone targets to get 8 touchdowns. He had so many drops. So he's a tough one. I don't think you'll see him on many of my teams next year.
Agreed. Won't see him on mine either. How about you? Who's your best player?
So I have one that's kind of related to the guys we've been talking about. So I'm going to stick with that Atlanta offense. And I'm going Kyle Pitts. I've just seen too many of the disappointing seasons and performances. Kyle Pitts, like he burst onto the scene, 1,000 yards as a rookie. Yeah, interesting fact. He had 1 touchdown his rookie season. He had 2 touchdowns his second year. Do you know how many touchdowns he had last year?
I was really good at patterns in kindergarten, so I'm going to say 3 touchdowns.
He had 3. So what do we get in his 4th year?
Do I get a cookie? Do I get extra nap time?
You get a gold star.
Gold star. It's better than kindergarten.
Okay, so what's the number?
Oh, this year it'll be 4, right? He's going to
exactly.
Keep
you get a gold star. So we're going to expect 4 touchdowns out of him. This guy is being drafted amongst the upper echelons of tight ends right now, and I actually think this year is super deep when it comes to tight end. Like the tight end landscape this year is actually as good as it's been. But you've got guys like Laporta, Kincaid, McBride. You've got Mark Andrews actually getting drafted in the same range as Kyle Pitts. You've got Kyle Pitts going over guys like George Kittle and Evan Ingram, like proven guys. And you're drafting a guy that has put up some pretty pitiful seasons the past couple of years. And I just don't produce. I know people want him to. There's a lot of hype. But, I want to see it, right? And if I'm going to have guys, like I said, Kittle and Evan Ingram in that same range, I'm going them every single time. Pitts might be that guy. He might be able to do it. I know he's been banged up a little bit over the past year or so. Obviously, Arthur Smith was there, so we've joked about him and what he's done to that offense time and time again. But I just want to see it.
Let me ask this. I mean,
just want to see
Kirk Cousins, the guy who's done well with tight ends. He did well with Vernon Davis in Washington. Obviously, T.J. Hawkinson was, before his injury, one of the top tight ends in the league last year. Do you think that that's a Cousins thing? Does that give you some reason to maybe believe in Pitts?
I think that's why he's getting pushed up in terms of ADP. I think people want to believe that Cousins can support that. Like I said, he might have a good year, but when it comes to tight end, their value out of tight end scoring touchdowns, not because they're like wide receivers and they're getting 7 to 8 catches for 80 to 100 plus yards, right? Like you really are hoping your tight ends get a touchdown, really prop up your team's score each week. And we just called it, right? Like Pitts, for whatever reason, has not been an end zone target in the first 3 years of his career. He's barely scratching the surface of going beyond 3 touchdowns. So maybe Cousins changes that. I don't know. Maybe it's the offense. Maybe it's a combination. There's a lot of what ifs to take him as high as some of these other proven guys, like I mentioned, like Kittle and Ingram. I just don't think he's going to be quite what people expect. I don't think he'll perform at his draft status. And to me, he's going to be maybe not a complete bust, but he's going to be someone that's not going to perform at the level what you're drafting. And if someone gave you that information prior to the draft, I don't think you'd still draft him knowing that going in. I'm going to say stay away from Kyle Pitts.
All right, stay away from Pitts.
Yeah. Speaking of the Pitts, let's talk about some guys really on the deep end of the draft, at the very, very bottom, where you think they could actually have the upside, though, to really be a contributor and maybe even be a league winner. Who do you have on your list of deep sleepers here?
So let me give you 2 names. I'm going to give you a deep sleeper and a super deep sleeper. Deep sleeper, Marshawn Lloyd. 3rd round pick, 103 athleticism score from Player Profiler. Going to a great situation in Green Bay. Now, obviously, Josh Jacobs is the unquestioned starter, so not a great situation. Like, we're not saying draft him in the 6th, 7th round. However, take a late flyer on him. Obviously, Josh Jacobs has had some injury issues. That Green Bay offense is going to be fantastic. The offensive line is strong. If anything happens to Josh Jacobs, Lloyd kind of has the characteristics of guys like Ken Walker and a Chain, and so a few of those guys who are like essentially league winners. He could kind of be this year's big backup back.
Well, I think LaFleur was even on record, or there's some reports saying that they're going to work him in. Like, he's not even a guy that is coming off the bench if something happens to Jacobs. Like, they're working him in. I don't want to say he was quoted as saying it was going to be a platoon, but it sounds like Lloyd's going to get some work.
Well, if you think about last season, that's what they did with Jones and Dillon.
Yep.
Now, that doesn't mean you want to be starting Dillon when Jones was healthy. In fact, based on last year, you want to be starting Dillon when Jones was out. But yeah, I don't think Lloyd has platoon value. However, I mean, he's someone they believe in. I do agree that if something happens, then to Jacobs, big upside. Again, guy on the end of your bench, insurance, right? Deep flyer. Now, deep flyer, or like the last guy you take in best ball, Isaac Guerrero.
I don't like where you're going with this.
I don't like where I'm going with this.
I don't like it one bit.
I do not want to speak this into existence. If somehow, some way, Christian McCaffrey gets hurt, I don't even want to...
shut your mouth.
Sorry.
Damn mouth.
Should it happen?
Oh,
heaven forbid that happen.
God.
Elijah Mitchell's been hurt, and he's just not been as effective the last couple of years, right? So, Shanahan's going to have a number 1 running back, and he's going to lean on a running back. I really pray every day that it is Christian McCaffrey the entire season. But in a world where it's not, Guerendo's not a bad guy to have on the end of your bench because he's explosive. He's someone who was highly praised as a draft pick, perfectly fits the mold of a Kyle Shanahan running back. And if the opportunity presents himself, could be a league winner.
Yeah, he had a really strong athletic profile. I think they said he was either the 1st or 2nd fastest guy in the draft. So I don't want to think about that potential outcome.
Don't say it.
Yeah, you said it. I'm not going to say it. You said it. But he'd be a wise last round pick. So interesting. Yeah, some interesting selections there. I think worthy of stashing for sure. I'm going to go with a guy who just know. I know we're recording in June. I think by July and August, this guy is going to be flying up draft boards. I just know it. So I'm going to call it now. but I'm going with Lad McConkey. Lad McConkey.
You just wanted to say his name to do the accent.
Yeah,
I know.
that's it.
Yeah.
I don't really want to pick him as my guy, but I just want to say his. No, Lad McConkey. But Lad, he competed against Brock Bowers and Adonai Mitchell for targets, so he had a stacked offense he was playing with, but he still performed well. Look, Lad was a second-round pick, so obviously has the pedigree and profile that you want. Super good route runner, 440 yard, sub 4.4, 40-yard dash. So he's got the athleticism and speed. There is a super weak receiving core that's left out there in Charger land. Tim Allen is gone. Mike Williams is gone. They've got Quentin Johnston, who pretty much threw up I won't call it a bust of the season, but definitely did not perform to the
Is he really even there, though? Like, is Quentin Johnston, is he really there still?
Here's the thing about like rookie and second year wide receivers is they used to take a while to develop. Now you see guys contribute immediately.
Yep.
And Quentin Johnston just did not do that. So I think that was a little bit of a letdown. But I think the overall point is that wide receiver room is devoid of like just premium talent. And then you have Lad walking in, I think he's gonna lead the team in targets, right? And so even though it's gonna be a run first, run second offense, they've still got to throw the ball at some point, I think.
It's Jim Harbaugh. This could be run first, run second, run third, punt, and then get the ball back and run the ball again.
Punt, they just run the ball for 3 yards. Who knows, But all jokes aside, they're going to throw the ball a little bit, and I could see a world where Lad gets 110, maybe 120 targets if things really break for him well as a rookie, right? And
I thought that was his first 2 seasons combined in Harbaugh offense. So, as a rookie,
maybe we'll see. But this is a guy you're taking at the end of the draft either way. Right now, you could probably grab him in the later, like 10th, 11th round of drafts, but he may go up a bit. I actually think this guy's going to contribute week 1, week 2. You may not see big games from him right away. You may see some 4 to 5 catches for 50 to 60 yards in weeks 1 and 2, but as he gets more comfortable, and there's already reports of him and Herbie building rapport at OTAs. I mean, they're locked in. They're ready, right? I think that team is going to turn things around in real life. Someone's got to catch the ball, and why not Lad McConkey, who has the profile for it?
And it's a great point, too. I mean, our younger listeners may not, have been playing fantasy at this point, but like Odell Beckham, right? Took 8 weeks. Took 8 weeks involved in the offense. Took him about 8 weeks, but about week 8 or 9, he just busted out and was the number 1 receiver the rest of the year. And I think that's a pattern you see with a lot of rookies.
Yeah, exactly. I got another pretty deep pick here. It's unfortunately another Niners doomsday scenario.
Oh, shoot.
If the listeners caught up to speed on some of the very, very current wide receiver drama, Brandon Ayuk was on social today. He had some post where he was on a FaceTime call with Jaden Daniels out of the Commander Land. And he said, they don't want me back, referring to the Niners. And I can't believe that the Niners actually said that.
He sounded like Fresh Prince, right? That was like that. Why don't they want me?
He seemed kind of confused. I don't know. I think this is all like part of his ploy and the playbook from a negotiation standpoint to sign a bigger deal. But if something happens, he gets traded, or they sign him and they trade Debo, because Debo could be traded as well. If anything happens to any of those wide receivers, this offense obviously is one of the best in football. Ricky Pearsall is a polished route runner already. He has advanced athleticism. He's a 42-inch vert, has great hands. The tape is just dripping with like amazing plays. He's getting all the 1A reps in OTAs with Purdy right now. Shanahan has already commented on the rapport they're building. I mean, we'll see what happens with the drama with the wide receivers. I feel like the Niners always have wide receiver drama. But if something happens, like that dart throw of a pick with Ricky Pearsall, probably as a last round or one of the last rounds that you have, and you pick Pearsall, like Pearsall's a guy, if things break, could get like 900 yards and maybe 5 or 6 touchdowns in his rookie year.
Well, and drama aside, I mean, I hate you for making me do this, but Debo, another guy, banged up a lot last year, plays really physical game. And whether he has a longer-term injury or if he just misses a few games, winning you the league doesn't always mean that it's the player that gets 1,000 yards the last 8 weeks. Like, winning you the league could be a guy who is a star for 3 weeks and gets you into the playoffs, or just goes off in the last 2 weeks in the playoffs. And if anything happens to Debo for a short period, the Niners offense was significantly worse when Debo was off the field. And that's part of the reason they drafted Ricky.
Yeah.
And if Debo misses some time, he could step in and immediately make an impact.
Exactly. Like Ricky Pearsall is a guy where, again, if things break well for him, you're plugging him in during your bye weeks, and you're winning those weeks because your opponent has to grab guys off waivers who are just, putting up 3 catches for 22 yards or something like that in terrible offenses. So,
and hopefully the thing that breaks well for Ricky is not Debo's leg.
That's not what we want to break.
We're not speaking that in existence.
Let's switch gears from Niners doomsday scenarios. Let's move on to our next segment, and it's actually one I'm super excited about. We're here to talk about SmashUp a little bit, right? Because SmashUp Fantasy Sports is officially back.
We're back.
I'm excited to play. Obviously had a ton of fun last year. Had a lot of great feedback on our tourneys. And we started at a time where we dipped into the season week, what was it, 10?
13. Late. That late.
Super late. So it was almost like long fantasy playoffs almost. We had a lot of great traction with how late that we started. Registration will begin July 1st, but why don't you tell us a little bit more about what to expect for this coming year?
Yeah, I'm super excited. So last year we kind of had the one game. We had the weekly tournaments, one a week, and I think this year you're going to see a lot more. So 3 games, and over the next few podcasts, we'll spend a bit of time diving deeper on each one, but we'll still have the weekly tournaments, but with some fun twists, some challenges, and additional tournaments that weren't there last year. We're also introducing everybody's favorite season-long fantasy football. So the chance to play season-long, but to use smash cards to make your players better, impact the whole league, even use my favorite attack cards. If there's anything better than making your own team better, it's attacking your friends. I will be attacking Ming every single week that I can.
I'll be specifically attacking you too.
Everyone else will be. I am the magnet for the league.
Yeah.
And then my favorite, I think, single player. So we'll get into more detail on this in the future.
I'm excited for single player.
Single player fantasy, chance to qualify for the Tournament of Champions. This is going to be really exciting. I think something that does not exist anywhere else, nowhere in the fantasy world, has never existed. Brand new, brought to you by SmashUp Fantasy Sports.
Yeah, I don't want to give too much away because I know we'll talk about it in future podcasts and we'll share more on social. But I can't wait to play single player to see who I play against that single player mode. So I think that'll be exciting to find out.
And looking forward to it. And looking forward to hopefully we both make it through and hopefully get the chance to beat you in the Tournament of Champions.
Yeah, I mean, I'll beat you. So we'll see.
And George Pickens. All right. Move on.
Pickens all the way, man. Yeah, boom and bust. He's perfect for that. Okay, let's talk about CMC. Don't want this to be too Niner-centric, I should, but it's relevant because CMC was just named the player for Madden, and obviously there's a long history of Madden players, or the cover players, I should say, maybe succumbing to the Madden curse. So I know you did some research, and I know we're both concerned about our boy CMC being on the cover. So let's talk a little bit about this. Like, is this something real? Should we be concerned about this? Or what did you find out in some of the research that you did? Because I did a little research too, but I'm interested to hear what you found out.
Well, so let me give the short history. So this actually started with a Niner. Garrison Hurst was on the cover.
Got banged Garrison Hurst.
Had a terrible season. That started the curse. From there, I'm not going to go year by year, but I kind of actually started breaking this down into buckets, which is like my obsessive compulsive thing to do. So first of all, bucket 1, players on the cover had season-ending injuries. We're talking Dante Culpepper, Marshall Faulk, Donovan McNabb, Sean Alexander, Michael Vick, Larry Fitzgerald, Troy Polamalu, Brett Favre, and Rob Gronkowski.
That's a coincidence.
That is scary. Right off the bat. Let's bubble wrap CMC. A few players fell off. 1 star, Eddie George, and a couple of young players who maybe one-hit wonders, Vince Young and Peyton Hillis. A couple of weird ones. So Barry Sanders was on the cover and then immediately retired before the season started. Hope CMC doesn't do that, but maybe after we've cursed him tonight, he might. And then Antonio Brown was on the cover and became an Antonio Brown. I'm praying CMC does not rip his clothes off and run off the field. So that was not the same year, but still, it was the start of a trajectory.
Yeah, it's also Antonio Brown. So
someday they might say it's also CMC. So hopefully not.
Hopefully not. Yeah, but there's been some positive outcomes, right? Not all doom and gloom.
Make me feel better, make me feel like a better person.
Well, I mean, you got the ones we didn't mention, right? Mahomes, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Odell Beckham. They either had relatively standard, if not still very successful seasons after becoming the cover boys or poster boys on the Madden games. But
Cover boys. That sounds more like a sexy magazine shoot.
maybe it should be. No, after being like on the cover of Madden, I mean, these guys still had like really good seasons, and so it's not all doom. So here's the little research nuggets that I found out, and I think this was a Bleacher Report article that I saw on actually the Madden curse specifically. So they did a breakdown of all the different cover players and the outcomes, a little bit subjective on if the curse actually affected them or not. But they determined over the 24 years of the 24 cover athletes they had, 58% suffered from the curse. So more often than not, the curse was real. However, in the last 10 years, though, in recent history, only 2 have actually been deemed victims of the curse. So recent history suggests the curse is not alive. It is not going to affect the players. And there haven't been any back-to-back curses since 2011. So within the past 13 years or so, no back-to-back curses. There was no curse last year.
It kind of sounds like, if I'm reading this right, like ever since John Madden left us, the curse of the John Madden cover has kind of gone away. Maybe.
Well, when did Madden pass away?
I don't know the exact year, but now it was what? It was about 5-10 years ago. So it was around the time that you're giving me some better names.
So yeah, maybe he's there to help the players that are on the covers now.
Yeah, it's like it's like some kind of Hallmark TV show. He's up in heaven. He's like coming down every year and helping players.
But for football.
Yeah, helping players succeed. He goes to a small town. He helps people find love. Maybe he helps you find love. Wait, actually, Maryland went
love.
Scratch that.
find success.
I'm never invited to your house again, am I? This is Maryland's
get him in there. That's a given, though. Yeah, we knew you're not invited. But
so not so bad. But I'd still maybe feel better if he was on another cover like Dark Souls or like Mario Party or something. It's kind of the net of it.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think I would prefer for him to not be on the cover. Then we wouldn't even have to debate this, right? But I think the data and history suggests that it won't affect the outcome of this year. I think the bigger thing is, can the Niners be cursed even more already? There's just nothing to add to the level of just complete letdown that they've suffered. So
maybe this will be a reverse jinx.
I actually think so. This is our year, baby. Damn it, this is our year.
Our year.
Yeah.
Our year.
All right, so let's put CMC in bubble wrap.
Bubble wrap him.
Yeah, that's what we've concluded.
Put him in the vault.
All right, let's move this on to one of our favorite segments, role players.
Role players?
Yeah, we've got an interesting one on the heels of actually this evening, the Boston Celtics winning I believe it's their 18th championship.
They took the lead.
I think they're hanging their 18th banner, right?
Yeah.
Jayson Tatum, Jaylen Brown, and company finally get over the hump. And we had discussed, what would this do to Tatum's legacy if they didn't win? But we didn't talk about what would happen if they won and he didn't win MVP. And that's actually what happened tonight, right? So Jaylen Brown, for those of you who didn't hear, was named Finals MVP. They actually had pretty comparable performances and stats. So it was kind of a toss-up. And we actually have a little bug in the Boston Celtics locker room to hear their conversation post-celebration, to hear how it went down and how they discussed who actually was worthy of the MVP. You ready for this?
Let's grab a bottle of champagne and dive in.
All right, so let's set the stage. Hawk, you're Jayson Tatum.
Sweet.
I am Finals MVP Jaylen Brown.
I've heard we look alike. People say it's similar. I've got the kind of that build. Yeah.
You do kind of don't look like Jayson Tatum. All right. Okay, Tatum. We're in the locker room. We're celebrating. Let's get started.
Jaylen, we did it.
Jay, what's up, my man? Congrats, we're champions. This is so exciting. I'm so excited, man.
We made it. This is top of the mountain. They doubted us. Remember earlier in the year when I said, "Hey, we should have somebody injure Jimmy Butler," and you said, "Nah, don't do it." It worked.
Yeah,
we're here.
Hey, it works, man. You know what? I can't believe I won Finals MVP.
Oh.
It's crazy. It could have been either of us.
Did you? No, it could have been. It could have been either. It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter because we won, right?
No, it
Could have
doesn't
been either of
matter.
us.
I mean, if you would have won, I would have been happy for you. But
Yeah.
I'm the Finals MVP, which is amazing.
Could have been me. Could have been you. It could have been. I mean, it doesn't matter.
It could have been you, but it was me. I won.
It doesn't matter. But if it had to be someone, because it probably should have been me.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter, right?
Well, I mean, anyone can.
It's gonna look good. It's gonna look good.
You got a nice trophy. You need a trophy in your trophy room. It's kind of empty, so it's nice you got one. But I did put up 31, 8, and 11 tonight, and I mean, I did guard Luka Doncic for a lot of the series, but you did a great job guarding Derek Jones. Just fantastic job. You tried. You pretended.
I averaged 25 and 5, and you scored in games that didn't matter. Like, you disappeared when we needed you. I actually sparked a lot of our runs that led to our victories. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You know what? It doesn't matter. We're champs, bro. I'm happy for you as a champion. I won the Finals MVP. We're good.
Someone won. You won. One of us won. I just have to ask them. I've got to ask. Like, it was close, and I know some of the riders were on the fence. How did you win? How'd you get that? It was so close. How did you get that over me? I can't let it go.
Well, we have that visit to the hospital, out in Boston, and
wait, at the hospital? What hospital?
You
didn't tell me about this.
Go to the hospital. We see the sick kids. There was a sick kid out there. He was just not doing well. And he said the only thing that could, help him make it through was for us to win a title and for me to win the Finals MVP.
And they knew this is what the writers knew when they voted for you, that this kid would only get healthy if...
I writers this story about how that's the only way that this kid that
save a kid's life
could have. And so I told them the story, and they agreed it would be a good story.
Well, it's good. Listen, I'm proud you saved a kid's life. I guess I believe you. I just one question.
Yeah.
What was his name?
His name?
His name, the kid's name, whose life you saved, and so what was his name?
It was Horfordzingus.
Al Horfordzingus?
Yeah.
Did he have a brother? Was there a brother there? Was there another kid in the room by any chance?
Christopher Horfordzingus.
The second. Wow, there's two. The Horfordzingus family. It's
Horfordzingus. That's why they love the Celtics. The names sound similar.
Yeah. Well, you would never tell a lie. You would never tell a lie, Jen. So I believe you. So congratulations. Clearly, you deserve this trophy.
Yeah, I'm just glad we won, man. Maybe your legacy will have to be restored another day.
Is there another way that I could win, though? Is there anything else I could win?
Introduce you to a sick kid.
I think I'm talking to one right now.
Yeah. But you know what I'm excited for?
What's that?
To play SmashUp Fantasy Sports.
Well, I could beat you with that.
Yeah, I'm ready to play. I'll probably be the MVP.
I'm gonna be MVP of SmashUp. Let's do it. Let's go play right now.
I don't think it's content. I don't know Jaylen Brown's part, but I have to think Tatum is bothering Tatum.
I think it was. I mean, that was their conversation. Right? I think it was. There's a reason why Jayson was gritting teeth. He's happy. They're friends, but I think Jayson definitely feels like he probably deserved the MVP.
So just because we're filming post game, I wonder if anyone asked Tatum about that. Like, if they're just ready to just rain on his championship parade, just like in that moment, like, hey, do you think you should have won Finals MVP? You think anyone asked him that?
There's always a Skip Bayless type, right? There's always one guy who just revels in being...
I can't wait.
Yeah. One guy always just wants to be a jerk.
That'll show up tomorrow morning somewhere if someone asks him. Do you think someone had the balls to do that? I don't know. We'll see.
You would do it. I want to see you fly to Boston tomorrow.
I'm like, hey, congrats. Why didn't you win MVP? So that concludes our role players. Always love doing that. But really would be interesting to hear them discuss that because, again,
we just did.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. All right, let's go to Chef's Table. Chef's Table is always
chef.
Small tastings of some hot burning topics. Let's keep it with the Celtics. So, what's up, Hawk? Do you think Jaylen Brown actually should have won the Finals MVP? Do you think it should have been Tatum? What do you think?
I do. I mean, full season, I'm taking Tatum, but Brown just played better in the finals. I mean, look, they won in 5. They both
Yeah.
played well.
Yeah.
But what do you think? I know you watched the game, so.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it should have been Brown. Because I think at all the key moments of all the victories, it was Brown spearheading all of those runs, those big plays. Tatum had a really up and down series. I mean, there were only 5 games. He did drop 30 twice, but you know how they say like a quiet 30 for some players. Like it was a quiet 30 for Tatum. Like
I've never scored a
moments.
quiet or a noisy 30 in my life, so I don't
You
know.
haven't scored a noisy 2. But like a more interesting question for you is, what does this do for Tatum's legacy? We talked about that a couple pods ago. He won a title, but he didn't win MVP. Does this detract from his legacy at all?
I mean, look, the Warriors.
It doesn't matter.
Like, well, no, I mean the Warriors won finals where Iguodala won MVP, and
exactly. And I think people questioned Steph for years after that.
I think there'll be,
based on what you said, I was going to actually make that exact analogy because obviously I'm a Warriors fan, so I track that stuff, and people actually use that against Steph's legacy or the legacy he's forming right now because he didn't win Finals MVP.
I think there's a lot of haters. I think there's a lot of hot takes in the moment. I think people will make the point. I think ultimately, when we look back on this in 10 years, this is a crowning achievement for both Brown and Tatum.
Yeah.
It elevates them from good players who maybe don't have what it takes, which I didn't agree with, but it's what people would say. To now they're...
But they got a ship now. Yeah,
exactly.
Either way, they got a ship. All right, on the other side of the court, you've got Luka, who was like everyone's golden boy coming into the finals because he had just played tremendously. And then he was just bitching and barking and hanging back and grilling the refs and not playing defense. Like, do you think that Luka has what it takes to win a championship?
Yeah, I do. It was a frustrating series. He still played phenomenally.
Yeah.
You know, what was interesting is the Mavericks and with Luka and Kyrie actually reminds me a lot of the Celtics from a couple of years ago, where we talked about this in the lead-in to the series. That Celtics team used to be Brown and Tatum. If you could stop them, they did not have other ball handlers and creators. And right now it's Kyrie and Luka. You stop them, and Derek Jones, Lively, PJ Washington. They're not a threat. They're not beating you. They're not guys who are going to be the ball handlers. Boston went out. They got Holiday. They got Derek White. Obviously, Porzingis plays a role and can score a little amount. Not maybe a ball handler. Dallas is just in that spot where Boston used to be, and I think if they make the right moves in another year or two, they're going to be hoisting their own title.
Okay, so you think they're close?
I think they're close. But they've got to make the right moves. They've got to add their version of Holiday and White to take the pressure. It can't just be all Luka and Kyrie. Eventually run into a good enough defensive team, they can stop that.
I think Luka does have to grow a little bit. He has to play a little more defense. He has to stop pitching to the refs. If he really wants to win, he has to set the tone and the lead, and he needs to be engaged in every single play. But
defense, yes. But how many championships did the Lakers win with like Shaq and Phil Jackson and Kobe and others like griping to the refs? Tim Duncan was whining on every single play. Like it's a meme. Like people make fun of LeBron all the time. Like he thinks he gets fouled in every play. Defense, yes. Griping to the refs is part of being a true superstar.
Well, I think it's connected. He, instead of playing defense, he was griping at the refs.
The DeMarcus Cousins.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I got you.
All right. Okay. Lastly, Joey Chestnut, hot dog eating champion. He goes up against Kobayashi on an actual Netflix stream special on September 2nd. Who you got?
Kobayashi. He's the only champion in my mind.
Kobayashi. I'll go with Chestnut. Let's put a little something on it.
Loser has to eat 10 hot dogs in a minute.
What? 1 minute's kind of crazy. Let's say 10 hot dogs. No, that's a lot. Let's say 5 hot dogs in a minute. Okay. All right. That's our episode for today. Chris, why don't you let everyone know they can continue to follow along as we get ready to kick off SmashUp this season.
Yeah, season's around the corner, so make sure you subscribe to the podcast. If you have not, go register now, smashupsports.com. We're going to talk more about those games. Make sure you get in, secure your spot. Everything free to play, no pay to win. Totally about having fun and competing with your friends or playing single player, improving your dominance. And, of course, go follow us on other social media, too. Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, and YouTube at SmashUp Sports. Right down there in the description, you'll find the links. We'll see you next time.
All right. Thanks, everyone, for listening in. As always, your finals MVP out. We'll see you next time.
His wife, my kids. See you next time.
The ugly one says hello.
They're all ugly.